So now that we've got our portfolio built, it's time to start building projects on top of our portfolio. So what I've done here is I've picked out 7 different projects that we're going to go through and follow. They're going to be covering a broad variety of web development skills that we're going to need. So once you're done with completing all these projects, you're going to have a good understanding of back-end, front-end, and full stack, so that whatever area you want to go in or specialize, you're going to have a good fundamental understanding of what that is by actually coding that stuff yourself. So let's go through it first at a glance. So we have a login form. It's going to be another example of using Bootstrap. We've got a fixed navbar and sidebar and a responsive 2-column layout. So both of these projects are going to be not using Bootstrap. We're just going to be coding the CSS from scratch, and that's going to give us a better understanding of how CSS really works. And then we're going to move on to JavaScript, first starting out with a simple counter and then building off that simplicity with a more complex stopwatch. Finally, we're going to move on to Ajax and third-party APIs, and then a full-stack application where we implement our own APIs, dynamic server rendering, and our own web server with Node.js. So let's just go through these projects each one by one so that we understand exactly what we're going to be building. So this is a login page. I'm sure you all are familiar with a login page, so I don't even explain how it works. But basically what this is just another example of using Bootstrap. I know that we've used Bootstrap quite a bit in terms of building our portfolio, but another example would not hurt, and we can get some ideas of how we might do some basic modifications to Bootstrap to make a page that we can use. After that, we're going to go into this fixed navbar and sidebar. So as I mentioned, we're going to be creating this from scratch, no Bootstrap. And the reason we're going to be doing this navbar and sidebar is because this sort of layout where we have these fixed navbar and fixed sidebar and a scrolling content region in this sort of box it's a common modern app, web app pattern. So if you look at YouTube and Gmail, those are 2 examples of web apps that use this type of layout. And so for that reason, it's going to be important for us to be able to build layouts like these on our own. So building off of the fixed navbar, we're going to go on to the 2-column layout. So this 2-column layout, we're going to be using that fixed navbar that we created before, and then we're going to be going over this pattern, which is another common pattern. I know that Medium.com uses this sort of idea, even though it has like a 3-column layout here and then the 2-column layout there. But this is going to be a common pattern you're going to see across a lot of different websites. And so how it works is that we see 2 columns here, and then when we move our screen to a mobile size, these 2 columns are going to collapse into 1. Just like Bootstrap does it. But for us, we're going to be implementing it from scratch so that we understand how the media query works in order to really understand how to create our own responsive websites. After that, we're going to be done with CSS. Then we're going to move on to JavaScript. So we're going to start with this JavaScript counter, which is pretty much the simplest thing that we can implement with JavaScript. So it's just going to have an increment and decrement. After we're done with that, we're going to move on to the stopwatch. The stopwatch is kind of like the next step in terms of the counter, where we have a little bit more complexity and we have these timers that are going off as well. That's the stopwatch. After finishing the stopwatch, we're going to explore Ajax and third-party web APIs. So this search TV shows application, what it does is it's going to reach out and make a third-party API request to TV Maze, which is going to give us a list of TV shows. So when we type in dogs, we're going to make that API request. It's going to return a list of data which contains TV shows with the words dogs. Makes sense? I think it does. So finally, we're going to go on to this full stack yes or no app. And there's so much to talk about here that I actually don't want to get into it, but let's just see what we're going to be creating here. So the whole idea of this ask a yes or no question app is that there are many sites out there that are question and answer sites. I think the most popular one that I know of is called Quora, where you ask a question and then you have a bunch of experts or just random people or famous people answer that question for you. And so what we're going to do is just build the simplest sort of question and answer website that we can. So let's type in some question that is a yes or no. What about, can an apple be red? Let's ask that question. And since we haven't asked it before, we're gonna see that it's asked. So if we go to our answer page, we're gonna see a list of all the questions people have asked, and we're gonna be able to answer them simply right here with yes, no, or bad question, delete it. So where are we? Can an apple be red? Yes. So now we've answered the question. If we ask this question again, now we have an answer. So it's really that simple. So that's what we're gonna be doing. And after you guys get into the habit of creating these projects, you're going to be able to go out into the real world and sort of have the confidence to tackle your own projects that you can put into your portfolio. And as I talked about before, the best way to learn is by doing. And so by doing these projects, we're going to be learning the material at the same time, and we're going to have something to show for our effort. So without further ado, let's get started.